Good. So, welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Sourabh Kothari. He has studied economics and finance and has worked in the industry now for 15 years and the last 7 of those at Cisco, where he's currently a senior manager, and he and his team produce and deliver rich media content to other industry professionals from Silicon Valley to Wall Street. They've delivered over 2,000 webinars and they received a number of awards, including 2 Emmy nominations. And so it's a pleasure to welcome here to his talk. I learn, therefore I buy. So it's welcome.
Just a quick check, can everyone hear me? Yes? Does everyone want to hear me? Okay, good. I didn't hear a yes, so at least you're honest. As Ingmar mentioned, I started my undergraduate degree in film school, and I finished in economics with a minor in finance. So clearly some connection issues between my right and left hemispheres. And for those of you who are in that situation, don't worry, you'll turn out fine. Look at me. I'm going to jump right into the heart of the presentation, which grows from the idea, the principle, the practice of marketing, then straight into business and commerce, and then how does that intersect with learning? And then we'll end with the medium that I've built my career on, which is visual communication, video and webinars, or rich media is what we call it. So when you think about what marketing is, we in marketing like Peter Drucker's definition, because he leaves space for nobody else except innovation. And that's nice for us, because no one else really gives us that kind of credit. But we're going to investigate what that actually means. Why critical aspects of business, according from one of the visionaries in the field. So let's start with what's the purpose of marketing? What's the purpose of your communications? What's the purpose of your persuasion if you are a business organization? Right? And for this talk, we're going to focus on for-profit organizations. Is your purpose a sale? Right? There's a lot of focus right now on how marketing can generate sales. It's not mentioned at the beginning, but before I was in marketing, I was in sales. And I could actually sell without marketing. So no, sale is not the only purpose that marketing's around. Is it the recurring sale? Is it getting customers to buy again? Maybe you've got a great salesperson, but they get tired or they get bored. So maybe marketing steps in. Or is it lifetime loyalty? And let's go a little further than lifetime loyalty, which is pretty steep, right? If you want to get lifetime loyalty from a customer, you're asking for a lot. But some brands go even beyond that. Here's an example. Many of you know this campaign and know the brand. And their claim is actually that you don't even own their product. You simply take care of it for the next generation. So in this case, their marketing is claiming afterlife loyalty. Okay, we would like you to remain a customer after you die. That's pretty bold, right? So I'm going to do a quick poll because I realized when I walked in that there are a lot less chemical engineers than I was expecting. And so I'm going to ask really quickly, who here does research? Okay. The rest of you, if you're students, what are you doing? There's a lot of people who didn't put their hands up. You should be doing research. The reason I ask is if you're doing research, then you're familiar with the concept or the notion that you should never use one source when 2 will do. And what that means is it's always good to get facts that support your bias or your own thinking. But in this case, I'm not going to go to another expert. We're going to go back to Peter Drucker. What is the purpose of marketing? In a nutshell, philosophically speaking, it's to drive so much demand that the act of selling is almost unnecessary. I want to pause there for a second, right? Especially for those of you who are looking forwards to an entrepreneurial career or career in sales. Am I trying to put you out of a job? No. But at some point, if you're good at what you're doing, I will be competing with you. Right? As will everyone else in this room. That's just the reality of all of us professionals. What this is actually talking about is the sales effort. If your marketing is where it should be, if your communication is where it should be, if your brand is where it should be, then selling really should not be an effort. And to go further beyond just making a sale, statistically speaking, these are 2015's, according to Forbes, the 16 most valuable brands in the world. Some of them you know, and some of them you might not, but they're worth a lot, double-digit billions, okay? The brands themselves are worth that much. What companies with strong brands, with companies with strong content, with companies with strong marketing have that others don't, is the ability to also charge a higher price. Now, you might be wondering if your idea of competing is based on price, why would you do that? Why would you want to charge your customers more? Because it gives you more cash. More cash gives you more margin. If you have more margin, you could do more research. If you could do more research, you could take more risk. If you could take more risk, you could develop better products and services, which you can charge a higher price for. Everybody following how this works? Okay? This is exactly how it works. And for these 16 brands, this is a very, very strong strategy. There's one or two exceptions, and I think you guys can see that there are one or two brands on this slide that do compete on price. In fact, they're killing their competition on price, but most do not. Most compete on the strength of their brand, on their ability to persuade their customers. Okay, that's great. Thank you for that, Sourabh. What does that have to do with learning? Right, we're here to talk about I learn, therefore I buy. So we've talked about buying, let's talk about learning. In order to connect the two, I'd like to walk you through a very simple example of the buying process, okay? And I could have done this for the female character, but everybody uses a female character, so I thought, you know what, let's do one for men. We buy stuff too. So this is the situation. Here's the need, right? Unless this is specifically your style, this shoe needs to be replaced, okay? So what does a guy do? And let's say this isn't your most tech-savvy guy. Simple solution, walk over to a shoe store, okay? This is a buyer. You know, if you're in marketing, this is very exciting stuff. He walked to a shoe store. He has demand. Now I need to get it, right? How am I going to do that? Goes into the shoe store, considers options. Many, many, many options. Narrows his options down to a few that he really likes. And then here's the kicker. Here's the kicker for most of your buyers in most of your markets around the world. Till about 15, 20 years ago, the equation stopped there. The person had a few options, and based on their demographic or psychographic or whatever graphic, preference they had, their decision was simple. They liked one, they bought it. What we've been noticing and what research is telling us is that there is one more step for those who can afford it, and a lot of people today can afford it. It's to make the final decision between their preferences or options in a way that makes them feel good about themselves. Not just feel good about the product or the purchase, but feel good about themselves. And this is causing a lot of heartache for marketers. Okay, now you're starting to ask some very uncomfortable questions about our brand and our companies. We just want to sell you stuff, let's just leave it at that. But now you're starting to ask who we are. What do we think of you? What we think of you, what does that make you think of yourself? Right? And if you know we're thinking about you, then are you thinking about us? These are important questions, and the final choice, this is also where brands play a big difference. The power of a brand is generally in the last mile, that people will trust their purchase decision with you because it makes them feel good about themselves buying from a particular brand, one or a few. In this particular case, you might recognize the shoes. These are Tom's, a strategy that has been built very, very largely upon this phenomenon, about making people feel good about buying shoes, because some kid also gets shoes. And that's nice. So, how does this actually play out? And for those of you who thought I'd only have pictures and videos, come on, this is Stanford. I gotta have my standard PowerPoint slides, right? Here's a table. We're going to use this table or this framework for the rest of today's conversation. And we'll get to video shortly, because that is obviously my area of expertise, along with webinars. But in purchasing decisions, in buying decisions, right, in transactions, the ladder that your customer is climbing is, broadly speaking, from awareness to trust. Right? I trust the brand, I trust the service, the product, it'll work, to ultimately respect. And most of you are old enough to know this is exactly how relationships work, right? There are a lot of people that you know, there are fewer people that you trust, and there are very few people that you truly respect, right? You go to them when you need an answer. The trust's already there, the respect drives the relationship further. Now, because we're not looking at just driving a sale, right? Our goal here is not just to get people to buy. If you're a good company, people are already buying, or you wouldn't even have this problem. You wouldn't have a marketing department. You wouldn't have made it that far. And we're in the part of the world where a lot of companies don't make it that far, right? A lot of really broad, big ideas, and in a year it's all gone. So let's say that you are selling, and you're selling repeatedly. The way these three play out in the way that you produce media, the way that you message, the way that you communicate with your customers differs in the pre-purchase, post-purchase, this is just after someone buys or shortly after someone buys, to the loyalty phase, where now they're fluidly moving between buying, repurchasing, not buying, repurchasing. They're in your zone, so to speak. And that's where most of you want your customers. That's what you want your brand to deliver, is loyalty. So let's look at awareness, okay? Awareness speaks to traditional marketing that most people are familiar with, which is advertising. And just for the sake of it, since I expected there'd be a lot of pretty young people in this audience, I thought I'd remind folks that there was advertising before the internet, okay? It was actually a pretty big business, and it was pretty creative, and it worked. In fact, some of the things you're seeing here are over a century old. One of them is maybe 400 years old. So advertising goes way back, okay? And in the pre-purchase stage, most of what you're doing with awareness is advertising, okay? You are getting in front of a customer or a buyer. And in most cases, it's just a simple interruption of, excuse me, can I have your attention? And that's about it. If you're doing more than that, then you should talk to someone like myself, because you need to really understand advertising. Okay, that's really what ads are good at, is that much. But let's say people are buying. Okay, let's move past advertising. We get into the post-purchase area of awareness. Now again, we're not talking about trust. You do not trust this brand yet. Okay, you're just aware of them. But for whatever reason, you bought. Let's say it was a necessary purchase that you really didn't care much about, like gum. So you weren't really going to do a lot of research on the chewing gum that you're going to buy, because you just want to make sure your breath doesn't smell horrible before you go out on your date. So you bought some gum. Post-purchase, in the awareness stage, a few more things come in. Normally, a brand will start to personalize. Since you bought, I know you. Until you bought, I was guessing. But now you bought, I know you. Now I know most of you are probably thinking, no, most brands I buy from don't act that way. They still don't know me. Well, I'm sorry. As a marketer, on behalf of the others, I'm sorry. Right? When you buy from a company, they should immediately acknowledge that they now know you. Okay? Because they do. Awareness changes. Now they start to address you with whatever information you've provided. Are you a man or a woman? Do you have a name? Do you live somewhere? Do you have preferences? The extreme case of this, still in awareness, is what I like to call the virtual sales rep. At some of my friends work at a number of startups in the area, and they don't have enough salespeople. So they actually have a bot that as soon as someone buys is reaching out, like it's their account rep, and welcoming them to the company, asking them if there's anything they need, reminding them that there are other products they could buy. And that's actually being done by marketing. That's not being done by sales, but it's signed by the account manager. Depending on how the person responds, sales may or may not be brought in. On the second and third touch, you could still be communicating with the machine. And you might not know this. This is still the awareness phase. They're still trying to make you aware of what they do and who they are. They haven't built trust yet. And if for whatever reason you never build trust with a brand, you simply remain aware of them, but you continue to buy from them, again, maybe the purchase is pretty insignificant, you just don't care, or you don't have a choice. You might hate them, but you got no choice. You gotta buy, and you gotta buy from them, right? Monopoly. Well, in that situation, what happens is normally your communication, the brand's communication, moves from personalized to customized. Now they're learning a lot about you over time. So they're going beyond just recognizing who you are. They're starting to actually identify you and helping you identify with other people like you. This is the phenomenon that a lot of people have spoken about called the tribe. If any of you have studied marketing recently, you're aware of the tribe and the power of communities. But you still don't trust them. Okay? Let's cross that barrier. Let's move into, for whatever reason, you now trust a brand. But before we do that, I'd like to tell you a little story. I didn't give you much of an introduction. I will before Q&A. But if you haven't figured it out, I'm a professional storyteller. That's what I do. That's pretty much all I've ever done. For 22 years, actually, I was in sales before marketing. I wanted to be a doctor, but I wasn't good enough at math. And it takes a lot of courage for an Indian to admit that. Okay? Just saying. So, Jell-O. It's actually invented by a husband and wife. I hope I get his name right. It escapes me right now, but it's Mr. and Mrs. Waite. The woman's name I remember, it's May Waite. And they tried to market the product. This is in the late 1800s. So we're talking over 100 years ago. They tried to market the product, get to sell, but they couldn't sell it. So back in the day, when you don't have the internet or telephones, or really any sort of mass communication except for print, what do? Right? When you need help, what do? You go to your neighbor. I know that's a very strange concept for people today, but that's what people have done for millennia. You've gone to people close to you because you actually kind of like them, right? Imagine that. That would be nice if we just brought that back. So they went to their neighbor. His name was Orator Francis Woodward. And he was running his own little sort of food company. He had a health drink called Graino. It was a alternative to coffee and tea. He was doing well. Graino was selling. And so they sold Jell-O to him. Not just the brand, the product, the whole business. Like, we can't figure this out. Orator, good luck, take it. Okay, thank you. He couldn't sell it. He couldn't sell. He already had a food business, and he couldn't sell it. So what do? He took a huge risk. And in 1902, 1903, between 1902 and 1904, he took out a printed ad. He put an ad out for Jell-O. And all of a sudden, it turns out that people actually wanted a gelatinous flavored dessert. So people started to buy. But Orator was an ambitious guy, and he said, you know what? I got a few fruit flavors that are selling. I can make more flavors. If I only knew what people would use this for. Wait, why don't I just tell them? So he printed Jell-O recipe books. You're looking at one. And he started to distribute these. His salespeople would go out in these fancy carts and just hand these cookbooks out. And everybody wanted one. you know, because, I mean, you got to know how to use this stuff. You got to make these fancy desserts, right? This is the turn of the century. You know, things were about to get really bad for humanity, but nobody knew that, right, at the time. Everyone was doing pretty well in the early 1900s in developed cities. So his recipe books get out there, drives a lot of awareness, starts to drive a lot of sales, goes over 1 million. Remember, guys, I'm talking 110 years ago. Drives over 1 million in sales, and his company starts to take off to the point where he actually changes the name of his entire company to Jell-O. He gets merged, becomes part of General Foods, la-da-da-da-da. Jell-O is now part of Kraft, because they bought General Foods. And that's the history of Jell-O. And one of the first instances of advertising backed by content. Not just telling you what the product is, but telling you how to use it too. You should make these things. People like them. They're tasty. They also introduced a character that was believable, a 4-year-old girl that did this. So, I mean, think about it. If a 4-year-old can use a recipe book, I can, right? There's a little bit of ego playing into it now. So, very smart marketer. So let's say that now you trust a brand. You want to buy, and you're in pre-purchase, and you trust the brand. So the conversation has shifted. Now that you want to buy, you're starting to consume their content. This is where most of the focus is right now in marketing, in messaging and content, because we have created an abundance of media options, right? I won't even list them. I was thinking about listing them on the slide, but then I thought you guys would just read them, and there'd be 1 or 2 I miss, and you don't want to be that guy, who missed somebody's marketing department. So I didn't list them. People are very touchy about this, especially large companies. Hey, you didn't include my marketing department. Oh, I'm sorry, sorry. So anyway, there's a lot of media, so there's a lot of content being produced. And so in the pre-purchase stage, right, let's move this forward. Your job is, now that the buyer trusts you, in the pre-purchase stage, your job is to inform. Right? You're going beyond awareness. You're now validating. You're trying to validate the trust. Right? Here's what you need to know about our product. Unfortunately, we're doing a terrible job at that. Most of you are aware of this. If you go to most websites for brands, it is extremely difficult to find what you're looking for, because you have to get past the first 45 minutes of what they want you to read or watch. Right? That's unfortunate, because you're not going to buy that. You're going to buy what you want. So your agent of discovery, who comes to your help? There's a company not far from here, built a business helping people find what they want. Any guesses? No, actually. Their search engine didn't do so well. Anyone else? No? They're a media company. Huge. Google. Google. What if we just let people find stuff? Stop making them follow you. Why don't you just bring it to them? Right? I'll be your agent of discovery. And I'll be your agent of discovery because the media industry has failed. The media industry should be providing to its subscribers, to its readers, the information they seek. Google has untapped an amazing opportunity that the media business is not doing its job well enough. So why don't we? Why don't we rate all the content, not just the media, the paid media. We'll rate all of it, and we'll serve it up to you, and you'll love us. And don't you? Right? Don't you guys love that? Don't you love how you can find anything on your cell phone while you're driving? Don't do that. Don't do it. Don't. People die. Seriously. Don't search and drive. Because if you search and drive, then you'll surf and drive. And it gets worse. But anyway.
You could use Siri?
You could use Siri, yes. Thank you for the product placement. After the purchase, right? So now you've used this revolutionary product and technology to circumnavigate the internet. And since I work for a company that simply just runs the internet, that's our one job. Our job is just to keep the internet and every network out there running. We're very happy with this proliferation of largely useless media. At some point, it's going to come back, and people are going to stop producing as much useless media, and we'll be ready. We'll figure out our next move. But after someone has bought, and they trust you, but they don't respect you, what's your next step? You're not at learn yet. We're not at I learn, therefore I buy yet. I trust, therefore I bought. It's in the past tense. I did it, and I trust you enough. Okay? It's kind of like going on a date that you're not sure about. Don't really know the guy, but somebody said he's all right, and I got nothing else to do right now. So I'll go on this date. Okay? What you need pretty immediately, with all the media and all the power a brand has, is validation. In the post-purchase phase, you need validation. As soon as possible, you need to fight buyer's remorse. It's a real thing. It's a big deal. A lot of people are very upset with themselves as soon as they click purchase or submit, or whatever convoluted way you have of getting people to buy your stuff. Okay? They immediately feel regret because until that moment they had all these choices, and now they don't. Now they made a commitment with somebody that they barely trust, and now they have to go on that date. But if you're a smart brand, you don't have to be big, you just need to be honest. You validate the purchase. We will deliver what we promised. The experience is as advertised. Get it? Advertised? Get it? And in most cases, if it's a good brand, it's better. The experience is better than it's advertised. That's intentional, because we want to suck you in further than the interest you originally had. Then we move to loyalty. You trust a company, don't respect them, but you trust them and you keep buying from them. We've covered the reasons why. I won't go there again. What matters here is honesty. And most of you, if you've studied anything about marketing in the last year, have been coming across a lot of content marketing. And content marketing tells companies and brands and practitioners that you need to be authentic. You need to be who you are so your customers feel comfortable being who they are. And you can really build trust. Okay? All right, I'm going to round this section out with a little story, and then we'll get to learning. So, John Deere company started a magazine for the benefit of farmers. I mean that, and so do they. They, honest to God, they started a magazine, distributed a magazine, millions of copies 100 years ago, for the benefit of farmers. Most of their customers were disconnected, did not have nearly enough information to grow their farming business. So John Deere comes to the rescue and says, we'll provide the information. Heck, we need the information anyway, right? We need to build products and services based on this information. Well, then why don't we just give it to you? We're collecting it. And from day one, the philosophy of the furrow, the oldest content marketing example still in practice today, was to deliver quality content, and they also like to do pictures. They just do, because no one else apparently does. So they always do pictures as well, and they have for like 50 years. And this is an example of content marketing. This is an example of what do you do when your customers trust you. You validate, you provide the information you can that's to their benefit. Okay, as soon as we cross the line into respect, you bought from a brand, you trusted the brand, now you respect the brand. That's a huge step to take. How does that happen? Right? What's really strange is what we're going to talk about in a minute here, which is respecting a brand that you've never bought from. And that's what's different about this stage. In the previous two stages, when we started pre-purchase, it made perfect sense. I was aware of them, I trusted them, fine. But now, why would I respect a brand I don't buy from? Yet all of you do. All of you have respect for brands you've never bought from. They're acting like media companies. They're influencing you with their media, with their brand, with the perception of the value that they have, and that you would be better off associating yourself with them. One of the first things that helps a brand to achieve I learn, therefore I buy, and this is pretty obvious, so I'll just give this one away, is you got to teach. That manifests itself in, for most serious industries, certification. In case you've ever wondered, why do companies put out certification programs? Why do they spend millions of dollars, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars, on certifying their customers, or even certifying people who aren't their customers? This is the reason. If you are an authority of knowledge in your industry, then even if I hate the company, I kind of respect them. It's kind of like school rivalries, right? There are rivalries amongst a lot of different universities. There are different brands. But let's face it, most of those schools are pretty awesome. You still respect them, even if for whatever reason you don't like them the year that you're supposed to not like them, because you got to defeat them. In our case, in football. It's very common here. So that's why respect is important in the pre-purchase phase for a brand, is because you want people to want to learn from you. If they're learning from you, how long do you think it'll take before they start buying? Okay? I'm skipping a step because in the post-purchase, the only difference is that the learning is tailored to your career goals. And the learning actually influences your career. It influences your income. It influences your savings, your mortgage payment, your kid's future because of some company. That's a pretty big deal. But the best brands are very good at this, and they do it. They provide customized training curriculum, right? Here's a very strange example, a story of a brand that did this. The Michelin brothers in France. Anybody know the Michelin company? Yeah? Huh. I'm surprised more of the Europeans didn't put their hands up, but it could also be you guys are just tired. Jet lag. Or hungry, that's right. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Ingmar, putting me at lunchtime. So the Michelin company, at the time that the brothers were doing pretty well, two Michelin brothers, about 10 years after they started, noticed that in all of France, there were less than 3,000 cars. So if you're a tire company, that's a bit of a problem. Your total addressable market is very small, since you can produce tires pretty quickly. So what do? Yes, you advertise, right? You guys got that part, right? You inform your customers about the benefits of having a car and owning a car, and don't you want a car? Please buy a car so I can sell you some tires. But they went a step further. This is very, very courageous. The brothers went ahead and said, you know what? There's a lifestyle that comes with owning an automobile in the early 1900s. And it's exclusive. You can go wherever you want. Now, saying you do own a car, you go wherever you want, and you got some money, I'm assuming, if you can do that, then what would you do? Anyone?
You drive to a fancy restaurant.
That's right. You drive to a fancy restaurant, assuming you can get there. Don't have Google. How do I get there? Right? I'd love to take my wife and children out to a fancy restaurant, but I have no idea where the fancy restaurant is, because it's not in my town, and I don't even know how to get there. Plus, I don't have a car. Right? All the problems. So they came up with the idea of the Michelin Guide. We're going to provide you information about places to go eat and stay and road maintenance. And if there's a major problem, we'll tell you. We'll also give you guides, hundreds of road guides in our Michelin Guide. You don't even need to buy our car, our tires. Just take the guide. Feel bad about the fact that you don't have a car. Right? Aspire to be the owner of a vehicle so I can sell you some tires. Okay, because if you don't have a vehicle, I can't sell you tires. You see the problem the brothers have? So the Michelin Guide comes out. Things go great for them. They do really well. They sell a lot of tires, a lot of cars get sold, not just because of the Michelin Guide, because cars needed to get sold, okay? People wanted cars. But 20 years into this, the story goes that one of the brothers walks into a garage, as the owner of a tire company would, and noticed something very strange about a desk in the garage. You know, the top was fine, but what was holding the top up was a stack of his Michelin. And he's like, hey, I don't like this. We spend a lot of money and take a lot of care to put these guides out. I guess they do this because it's free. We're going to start charging for the Michelin Guide. And they have been ever since. It's not a moneymaker, but the idea is that the information is worth so much that people would pay for it. More importantly, it can make or break a fine restaurant, being in the Michelin Guide and how many stars you have. So that's learning. We're going to move now to video and webinars, right? Collectively, rich media. How do we do learning with video? This is actually the fun part of the presentation. I'm sorry it's at the end, okay? It's kind of how it works. But nobody left, so I think I'm okay. So, if you want to know how to teach people through video, who should you turn to? Yeah, Jim Henson. The Sesame Workshop. That's what they're called now. They used to be called the Children's Television Workshop. But they had pretty much one program, so they just call themselves the Sesame Workshop now. I'd like to ask, because I don't know if you guys Googled it, how many Emmy Awards do you think Sesame Street has won in its 45 plus years? Any guesses? No? No guesses?
10.
More.
45.
That's actually a very logical answer. One every year? No. More.
90.
More.
1 million.
Whose answer was that? That was a good answer. Plus, you woke the room up. Thank you. They've won over 150 Emmy Awards and 8 Grammy Awards. You know, because they have such high budget programming. They spend so much money. No, they don't. Hand puppets. Muppets. They're using Muppets. And they use the same actors. They're not spending a lot of money. The difference in why Sesame Street, for 45 years, is considered one of the best, if not the best, children's programming every year, is that they help children learn. This combination works. They know how to use video. They know how to use what's called a temporal media. Okay, and this is the stuff I live and breathe, so I take it very seriously. Other temporal media are live theater, dance, music. Okay, these are temporal media, radio. Anything that's consumed over a period of time, as opposed to static media, like print or photographs. With temporal media, the number one differentiator in if you will succeed is story. And Sesame Street has some of the best, if not the best, children's television writers in the world. Many of them have gone on to do their own writing and their own books, and they win awards there as well. They just keep winning awards. They're good storytellers. That's why I use the example of Sesame Street. If you'd like to know how to sell things through video, and you believe that you can get your customers to respect you, then study Sesame Street. Okay, if you want some other quirky examples, let me know. I have a few. Now we're going to get to what we do. we're not the Jim Henson Company, right? We're not as creative, not as talented, right, as Sesame Street. But I'd like to play you a video that was nominated for an Emmy Award. And if you can tell me why afterwards, I'd love to know, because we're surprised. We're really surprised. We made it to the last round. We were very, very flattered. But this is what we consider learning for networking engineers.
Wireless has freed us from the burden of cords and cables and given us unprecedented mobility. And it was all great until we heard comments like, yeah, video. Thanks, John. But you know what? He's right. Video is a huge strain on wireless. I mean, look at these requirements. I love my 11N. It is fast, but innovation marches on. The demands will never stop increasing, so we need something faster or it's back to wired. Because now that we've tasted that freedom, there ain't no going back. Chill out, all right? We've got an answer. We wouldn't be doing this on video. Well, that's where the 802.11ac comes in. AC is an emerging standard coming out of the IEEE. It's VHT, or very high throughput. This means it operates...
That's some pretty basic stuff, right? But a few things you'll notice in the first minute of that video. How many times did we use the word Cisco? No, right? How many times did we use the word customer? No. No, right? It's very strange. Why are we producing this? What's wrong with us, right? Well, whatever's wrong with us, this has like 50,000 views on YouTube. For a B2B company, is pretty strange. That's a lot of people to watch a B2B video, right? That's networking engineers. But you know who else is watching? Our own staff. Our salespeople watch this video. Our customer support people watch this video. Because it explains an industry standard really, really simply. Okay, I'll wrap up. No, seriously, I'm almost done. All right, now we're going to move on to, I'm going to take a step back. This is in the learning space. I'm going to take you back to awareness so you can see the difference.
Are you ready, Katie?
Yes, Miss Williams. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Katie.
Today I'm introducing my dad. My dad works at Cisco, one of the biggest companies ever. Cisco sells most of its stuff through resellers who are spread across the world. For example, if this is Cisco, this would be my dad. But without resellers, this would be Cisco. And my dad, well, my dad wouldn't even be there. They know their customers, and they've worked together for a long time. And you know what? They even help support our school. Cisco's resellers are my dad's friends, and they're everywhere. So my dad doesn't have to be running around all the time. I'm proud of my dad because he helps people do the things they want and keeps everything working every day.
So that felt a lot more like marketing, didn't it? Yeah? Like an ad. Could have been a TV ad, right? Yeah, we're guilty. Was in the awareness phase, okay? Not learning. But can anyone tell me anything you learned about Cisco? Or our resellers? Anything? They're everywhere. Cisco is one of the biggest companies ever. We looked that up. It's true. We are. The idea was to shift the perspective. If an 8-year-old understands what our resellers do, then we think you might. Get it? All right, another one.
So, Lisa, we've known each other for some time now, and in that time, you've always been there for me. So I wanted to ask you something. Will you help me double my sales this year?
Of course, Matt.
Great. Will you help me finance deals that are larger than what I can manage myself?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Will you help me with training and certification so I can build my technical expertise?
Sure, I do all of that for you.
I know. It's great. But will you give me pre-sales, distribution, and marketing support?
Yes, I would do all of that for you, Matt.
Oh, that's perfect. Look, what I'm trying to say is,
Wait, are you?
Lisa Roberts McKenzie, will you be my distributor?
Okay, marketing, right? You guys have seen it. Video, funny video, it works. Those are two examples of the awareness phase, right? But even in the awareness phase, we sneak in learning. We make sure you learned something. And most of the time, we do it with emotion. Humor is most people's go-to. We're not fixated on humor. The previous one actually wasn't as funny as it was cute. We were going for cute, right? But you learn something, even as we're delivering the messaging to you. Most of you are probably thinking, yeah, that's just good writing, man. Don't take too much credit. Well, actually, there's a lot of work we do before we write to really understand what is the audience going to get from this. And if there's not enough, then we don't do it, because we've got a brand that's worth a lot. Okay, this is the flip side of being a brand that's actually somewhat respected. All right, last video, hardcore learning.
Hey, remember when gas lighting gave way to electricity as the future for lighting? Yeah, me neither, because it was over 100 years ago. Well, the times are changing again, and lighting is only part of the story. Hey guys, welcome. My name is Rob Boyd, and you're watching TechWise TV. You know, incandescent light bulbs still produce light the same way they did since the 1860s. A coil of wire inside this vacuum-tight glass enclosure agitates electrons through that coil by applying the proper voltage so that it gets white hot. So hot that it produces light. So the more resistance, the brighter the light. Well, Edison is credited with making the light bulb practical, but what is often overlooked is that moving from gas lights to electric lights, well, it required electricity. Well, this was a distribution challenge that Edison and his team took on as they designed all the components needed to get direct current to the light bulb. The sockets, the fuses, the switches, the power meters, the generators, the wiring. Well, the Edison Electric Illuminating Company, formed in 1882, brought electric light to parts of New York by creating a network. Cables that were insulated with beeswax and paraffin were run underneath the streets, but then problems came up. Horses were shocked trotting down wet streets. Workmen were electrocuted. Well, it was 43 years before electricity finally began to surpass gas as the lighting network of choice for the United States. And the light bulbs have finally started evolving from incandescent to fluorescent and, of course, LEDs, but the infrastructure has remained the same. And what's fascinating here is that it was actually not Edison's network that brought electricity to the masses.
Hey, remember when gas lighting?
So that goes on. It's quite a while before we mention anything about networking, anything about our products, our services. We've hit into, this is watched a lot, and this entire program, TechWise TV, is watched a lot. This video gets a lot of views because we actually talk about a huge change that's happening in an industry that our customers care about, and that's infrastructure. And it's happening right now, and it's a huge opportunity, but we wait. Learning first, earning after, right? Deliver something unique to your customers that helps them, then you get permission to ask them to help you. Very, very simple model. I learn, therefore I buy. Okay? I'm going to finish up with, these are our webinars, and all I have to say about this is that for anybody, has anybody ever sat through a webinar? Any webinar from a company? Yeah? Did you watch it again? No, right? No, most people don't, right? Most people don't. We're actually looking to change what we're doing with webinars so it just looks like that. All the slides, everything you want is in the video. And all you do is press a button, and then if you want to chat with somebody, ask questions, go ahead. But move the entire thing to a video experience so that we can continue to teach and people can learn through video. That's the reason I brought this up. The team would be upset if I didn't. Cisco takes this very, very seriously because outside of what I do, what my team does, we actually have a rather large investment in what's called the Cisco Networking Academy. We also have a very large certification program. There are over 2 million IT professionals who have been certified by Cisco globally. That's a lot of people to get certified through your company. And every year, we train about 1 million students, many of whom are younger than you, mostly high school students, training them on networking and IT for free. It's called the Networking Academy. And we do it because we believe that if they learn, they may buy. That's good enough. That's good enough for us. We just really want people to learn if we can make that possible. All right, the last piece. This is proprietary, so I had to scrub all the information, all the actual data, right? We don't have enough information yet. The study isn't complete. We don't have enough of the accounts that we're targeting covered. But we're looking at the correlation between media consumption and purchasing. Our media consumption and purchasing. Not our ads, our actual content. Then we're looking at the number of minutes that people are actually watching. And if you're using our infrastructure to do it, we can actually tell how many of the minutes you're actually looking at the video as opposed to just listening to it in the background. So that's also interesting. We're going to look at that. Does it make a difference if you're just listening or watching? But in a nutshell, if you've ever done research, if you've ever had to prove a hypothesis, this is extremely scary. This is downright terrifying. Because you should be really scared when your initial finding is that you were right. And that's what we're very, very afraid of. So we're going to continue looking at the data until we actually figure out if this is happening. If it is, you can expect we're not the only ones who are very interested in influencing buying behavior. All right, well, here's the matrix that I started with. And I'll just close before Q&A by saying that most companies, brands, valuable brands, have moved into the media space. Today's presentation, and I hope it made you think about what companies can do to move into the knowledge space. Right? Martha, I'm not looking to compete with Stanford. That's actually why the last block is left empty.
Have Cisco as a member of media.
Thank you. Let's keep it that way, right? But just think about the opportunity. Today, a lot of brands and companies are excited to be in the media business. What if we were in the knowledge business? What if we were creating and distributing knowledge to customers or to everyone? What does that opportunity look like?